Hello, beautiful people. Back again for another gorgeous episode of Age of Awæcnian, soulful stories unveiled. And I'm missing my beautiful partner in awakening, Felicia Lee, who is on a very well-deserved holiday after all of the amazing work. She's done 6 summits back to back. Like, what an effort. And I couldn't have been able to achieve all of the things in Awæcnian Academy without her. So I'm just sending her lots of love as she goes and recalibrates. And I'm so excited to have my next beautiful guest on, sharing her story, unveiling some mystical magic that we just love diving into in this beautiful podcast. And Sarah, I met her in this beautiful breathwork container, and she's only just like a hop across the ocean in New Zealand. So I'm hoping one day I'll get to give her a big hug in person, whether she comes to Australia or me over there. But beautiful Sarah Bradnock, she is such a fascinating woman. She's a country girl at heart, born and raised in the Appalachian Mountains in eastern Kentucky, and made the bold move halfway around the world at 22 and moved to New Zealand. I'm really bad at pronouncing the beautiful places in New Zealand, so I'm just going to say that. And from a conservative Christian girl to an open-minded, open-hearted, multimodality medicine woman, she is here to just dive in and let's see what unfolds in her beautiful, beautiful first podcast. So I hope you make her feel welcome, sending her lots of love, and we're welcoming her when I press the button. There we go. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. I've loved just witnessing you in our beautiful breathwork container and all of the amazing people and just the power of the medicine that we have within us that can flow through us. And, you know, this is something I feel like in just a small amount of time that I've gotten to know you in that space, something that is quite natural to you. I'd love for you to share a little bit about your story and I suppose how you came into just understanding this knowing within yourself. Was it gifted to you as a child or did it grow over time?
Those are some great questions, Marie. I feel like as a kid and as a young girl, I was very connected to nature. I was very connected to the land, to the trees. And that's part of growing up in this beautiful valley, which was one of our ancestral farms. And I used to go out my front porch and say, hello. And the mountains would echo, hello, hello, hello. And it was really beautiful to feel so connected to the land. And then moving to Aotearoa, New Zealand, nearly 17 years ago. But if I go back to my upbringing, I grew up in a very religious, very conservative home. And community, in fact, was much bigger than just our house. And not a lot of people really understood my connection to things greater than a Christian mindset, to the biblical mindset that we were ingrained in. And since moving to Aotearoa, and since a lot of things transpired over the first few years of living here. Over the last 10 years, I've really started coming into my own, reawakening these gifts within, reconnecting to the whenua, to the land, reconnecting to the tataia, the environment, understanding why I feel what I feel and that it's okay to feel these things and not everyone else feels these things. And that's okay too. So that's been a big part of my journey, is actually tuning into my intuition and learning what that sounds like and feels like for me, and knowing that it's different for other people. And now being a mama and raising a beautiful young lady and who has her own intuitive gifts, and guiding her on the path to holding her and helping her understand hers as well. So that's all bits and pieces of my journey so far.
I love that. And beautiful Felicia usually does like a card pull before, we go live just to see what unfolds. And, coming from the mountains, the wisdom of the land, and then going to New Zealand, which is again a very mountainous, beautiful space. It's like holding your ground, coming back within, being that pillar that you are now for your daughter, I think is so beautiful. I really resonate with like the upbringing of, you know, um, understanding the Christian Catholic paradigms and feeling the resistances. And I know for me growing up, it was a very Catholic, like God is good, but He will punish you if you don't do the right thing. So growing up, I really rejected that, and I was like, if God and universe or whatever it is meant to be all loving, why would He or whatever it is want to do that to people? And I like in my early 20s, like just like totally shunned away from everything, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to believe in anything, and I'm just going to believe in people and myself. And then in doing that and coming into teaching, working in like Catholic, contemporary Catholic settings, there was this really beautiful weaving of spirit and nature coming in with these views and perspectives, which then reopened my heart to community, that there are beautiful gifts and wisdom in people gathering. And then it's just discerning what aligns with my values and ways of being. And yeah, I found it really interesting kind of growing up in that paradigm and then shunning it and then coming back, and then I taught, religion and ethics for a while and not study of religion, but religion to middle school to understand some of these systems while also journeying like womb priestess wisdom that was coming online for me in my own experience. And like being a mother of a daughter, there's a whole thing that opens up with lineage work. And I know that's really profound in the work that you do. So how in your journey did you, I suppose, uncover the deep, I suppose, shamanic wisdom that you now like use with your clients and in spaces that you create in this lineage work and the work that you're doing for yourself and for your daughter and the generations to come?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's so much in your story that I resonate with. And I need to acknowledge that first, because when I was 19 is when I first started having flashbacks about quite a traumatic experience in my pre 7 year old phase. And so at 19, I kind of started questioning everything, because I grew up in this environment where, respect your elders was a saying that was used quite a lot with a lot of authority. And so I was not in a space where I could really question things that I had, like just nuances that you would hear in sermons and things like that. So I feel like I had a lot of suppressed questions from my adolescence. And at 19, when the flashbacks happened and I started going to therapy and I was diagnosed with PTSD and lots of layers to that little piece in itself. And I started really questioning, well, who is the authority of me? Who is the authority of my body? Am I allowed to say no when things like this happen? Like, where's the line here? Because if I'm told respect your elders, but it's an elder who's trespassing the rights of my body, then where does that go? And I really feel like the last 7 years of my life has really allowed me to dive into the shamanic journey. I've met this beautiful shaman who lives in Adelaide and is now a beautiful friend and mentor to me. And getting a little emotional thinking about him, but he first introduced me to shamanism and took me on my very first guided shamanic journey. And I could feel the power of my ancestors, because in my mother's lineage, we whakapapa, we come from Cherokee, that is the belief within our whānau, within our family. And so I could really feel those ancestors coming through and gifting me, showing me different ways of being, different gifts that I have within. And at that time, 7 years ago, I was not aware, like really aware of much of that in my conscious mind. And fast forward to this year, and I'm in an 8-day shamanism retreat, and I'm working with galactic guides, and I'm connecting with the energy of the trees and receiving messages from the trees and the flowers and the river and the mountains themselves, and really feeling this ancestral knowledge coming through. We worked with a beautiful herbalist at this retreat, and she had in her garden this beautiful native Kentucky plant called goldenrod. And goldenrod is the state flower of Kentucky, and it's a flower I grew up seeing all the time, but not knowing too much about. And I just saw this plant and I'm like, oh my gosh, what? Because I haven't seen it for 17 years. So I thought, this plant feels really familiar to me. And I went and I sat next to it. And, we're in this beautiful container where it's perfectly okay to be and sit and lay next to the flowers and just connect with them. And I'm laying next to this goldenrod and tears are just streaming down my face. And two of my ancestral grandmothers come in, and I'm not at that retreat for me, I'm there for them, and I'm connecting with goldenrod for them. And I end up doing this massive ancestral female lineage clearing on their behalf. And then since coming out of that, have guided others in two different guided shamanic journeys, one to heal the male lineage and one to heal the female lineage. And the female came first because that was the one that was really potent in my field, and one that I had done for myself and my own female ancestors. And being able to hold that space and allow their energies to come through and be seen and be held and be felt is really important for us. I feel like in this time and any time, it's such important work that we honor the energies of which we've come, because if it weren't for them, we wouldn't be here. And it's been such a powerful space to step into ancestral healing this year, and just knowing that our ancestors lived through famine, they lived through Great Depressions, they lived through so many wars, and all of those things impact on our DNA at a cellular level. And the more we can tap in and heal those fragments and pieces and parts of us, the more we're going to be healing ourselves and our future generations. And I fully believe that we can inherit trauma, but we can also pass on healing. So it's a beautiful duality to hold and acknowledge, and the power in that in itself is just so potent and important for us to embrace, for us to acknowledge, and for us to, I believe, fully dive into, because the time is now to start healing these things so that we can be fully ourselves and fully authentic and show up and keep showing up.
I think there we go, just lost connection for a moment. But this living in the duality and meeting yourself in those moments, I think, is really, really powerful. And when we start discerning and noticing and learning to surrender and release and then embrace, it's like this whole rebirth experience. And when you were saying, and I've spoken about this with many guests, so I love that it just keeps coming up in people's fields, that at the genetic level we hold the trauma, but we also hold the gifts. And I know in like my own unveilings of the gifts that have been innately within me for lifetimes, it's like my body had to go through certain processes to shed, let go, to then anchor in that discernment. And even like, when you were saying you were there for the ancestors, I find in certain spaces where I'm like, oh, this isn't for me. It is a little bit because you're there and the fractal of you is there. But it's like this gnosis of like, oh, it's for the people in this space, or this is for the land, or this is for the ancestors, and you feel it. And like people that have their gifts start turning on, I know for me, the voices, the audience that was coming through, I start to discern now what is higher self, what could be nature or spirit or whatever you want to call it, versus ancestors or angel guides or whatever. And there's a different feeling and a different sound that I hear. It still sounds like me, but it's not. And I suppose like in you discerning the gifts that have come online and knowing like either with the visions that you see or the memories or the gnosis that comes up for you, like how did you start to discern these gifts and these knowings and these remembrances and also go, I'm actually not crazy?
I'm actually not crazy. That's such an important thing to remember when you do feel like you're hearing these messages from another world, or you're not crazy. And one of the biggest things I learned quite early on from one of my teachers was ask. If I hear a message and I'm not sure who it's from or what it's for, I ask, is this for me? And having that knowing to go, not every message is for me. Some messages are for someone else, or some messages are for the land, or to be passed on to someone else. If I hear something, it's, hold on, am I the right recipient for this message? But I want to go back a little bit because how I landed in all of this is quite an interesting story in itself. Maybe about 10 years ago now, 10 and a half years ago, I was going through a separation and divorce and started going back to counseling just to work through my own thoughts and feelings and emotions around this transition. And I thought I was going to a normal counselor, like just showing up at therapy and talking and working through things. And little did I know that this woman was going to change my life and really shine this beautiful beacon of light into the possibilities that were going to unfold. I was sitting in her room and this card just flew off the bookshelf. The doors were not open, windows not open, air conditioning not on. And I was like, what just happened here? And this card, she actually borrowed the card for a couple of weeks, and it was a goddess, and I needed to have this particular energy with me, and it was to sit on my nightstand until my next session. And my grandfather, one of my grandfathers, who was an abuser of my early childhood, he also abused my father as well. And he had recently passed. So that was another trigger for me to be just working through layers of things. And we started tapping. So this, not only am I there for talk therapy, we start doing EFT. She starts doing auric magnetic healing, which is energy clearing, a beautiful form of energy clearing. She just opens up this whole other world of what it means to heal for me, because all I had experienced to date was traditional talk therapy, traditional counseling, psychology kind of stuff. And to be in this essence of this human who could hold such a beautiful space and just flowed where the energy flowed. She was receiving intuitive messages. I didn't understand that at the time. And now I'm like, oh my gosh. So she's doing energy work with me. And I said to her after one of the sessions, what was that? And how do I learn this? Because it was just so transformative for me. And it felt like home as well. And I was like, okay. And she said, you will learn this when you're ready. And then it turns out that all of a sudden these things started popping up in my feed about this course and this course. It was literally 15 minutes down the road. And I arrive at this course and I'm like, I don't know why I'm here, but I'm here. And then the snowball effects happens, right? You're in this 2-weekend workshop, and I'm learning all about energy. Amazing. So that was a real catalyst and a real beacon to show me so many opportunities within tapping into my own inner guidance, tapping into what energy feels like and how to clear it, and how to open my channel, how to work with guides and angels and ancestors. It really gave me a beautiful way of connecting to myself, but also calling my guides in and getting to feel the essence of them as I'm doing energy work. With humans, with animals, it didn't matter. They're there because my channel is open and they're invited closer in. They're always there, but closer in. And it's been a beautiful, beautiful journey. With them and with that particular modality. And then lots of other modalities have come online since that initial introduction. But when you go to a counseling session and a card flies off the bookshelf, you're like, oh, we're in another world. We're in another dimension here. So let's keep our eyes open and our ears open, and let's see what the universe is about to teach you.
I love that curiosity and that piece of just like noticing the signs being thrown at you. And like yourself, I also went to psychology and counseling when I had experienced miscarriage and occupational burnout, and all of these things that my body was like pushed me down this whole like sense of numbing myself or overworking,
Yeah.
and the mud in me just kept pushing, pushing, pushing. And it was like this voice inside my head that was like, you can't do this anymore. And it was like the lowest of the low. And I was like, right, I need to go and speak to someone. And similarly to you, this lady was she had this beautiful like crystal bowl, and she just really tapped into the emotions, and she had her animals around as well. And she just had some beautiful mystical things, and I was always been quite aware, which I was like, oh, okay, let's do this. But then it was understanding more about my emotional intelligence and the journey of what my body was going through, that it was all okay to feel frustration here, which led to anger, which then led to guilt, and then noticing what that pattern was, and that they were all valid feelings, and I shouldn't feel bad that my journey went there, because then I was just like putting myself down going to school, because I was like not giving my fullest self to the kids, but I wasn't even giving my fullest self home. And it was like all of these pieces that she just helped my logical brain kind of understand more deeply, because I do that work with kids, but for some reason I just wasn't doing it for myself. But it was those little glimpses and that layer of unpacking, which then allowed the spaciousness for more pieces to open up, and then working with other women, and like you said, the people start coming to you, or the opportunities. And I find more and more, like, I'm seeing beautiful butterflies flying around. I see a lot of wisdom in nature and animals, and it could mean no thing, like nothing, or it could mean something. And I always have been someone that has been in the polarity of like, well, what does that mean? And then
Yeah.
trusting the numbers that pop up, or trusting the song that
Mhm.
comes up on the radio, or the voice inside my head that's like, you are now ready for this, or
Yes.
feeling the guides of the grandmothers going, you've just initiated into this phase. And like, they're not words I would use normally. Like, the words that come through, it's like, my Marie self wouldn't normally say that. So then it's trusting that, and then my brain is like going to research stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, yep, course that makes sense. So it's interesting for people that are now awakening into their gifts to hear stories like yours, and mine, and what Felicia and all of our other guests have shared, because they're very similar. And some people are
Mm.
born with the gift straight away, and some people develop over time, and other people, it like bam hits them in the face, and things just turn on, and their whole nervous system is not ready for that. So with the work that you do, like, and
Mm.
I know we've done breath work and tapped into the nervous system. With your, I suppose, wisdom, why is it important for the listeners that are listening into these stories to really understand the power of the nervous system, the emotional body, the physical body, in order to hold that energy and the frequency coming in? I'd love to just share your insights on that.
Yeah, it's so multi-layered, right? And when we talk about the nervous system, the physical body, our energy bodies, our chakra systems, we can go into so many facets of this. And for me, one of the things I always say to people when they're on my table is breathe. Because we hold pain in the body, but actually we hold pain in the mind, because pain is a register that triggers our body into an emotional response. And so when we can tap into our breath, we can regulate or deregulate the nervous system. So often when we've experienced any kind of trauma, a car crash, any kind of assault, a test, sitting an exam can cause trauma to some people's systems because they go into fight or flight and their breathing becomes dysregulated. And so for me, it's really important, and it's been showing up in my field for a couple of years, for a number of years now. But this year, it's become so important for me to learn more deeply about the nervous system and breathing techniques to help people come back home into their body. And so what I mean by that is when I'm working with someone and they get a memory, if we're doing an energy clearing, because when we're working with energy, we're tapping into so many different layers of them. And when we clear energy, sometimes memories or visuals come up if you're that way inclined. And if something traumatic comes to the mind, shows visuals, it's really important to guide them into a gentle breathing technique where they can regulate their nervous system and where they can actually feel back in their body, because they can get so caught in the mind. And so as I work with people, I often take them through various breathing techniques and to do different things, to shift energy out, to wiggle their toes and imagine the pain moving down and out their feet. Wiggle their fingers if they've got tight shoulders to release that responsibility down and out their arms. So different ways of helping people not only know that they mentally are in control of their energy, of their body, but also giving them something that if I'm working with a teenager and they've got an exam this week and they start to panic, it's like, oh, what did Sarah say? I can breathe in for 4 and I can hold for 4 and I can breathe out for 4 and I can hold for 4, and I'm conscious and I'm coming back into the present moment because I'm not panicking about the future result and I'm not upset with myself for not doing as much preparation as I should have, because I'm focusing on counting in and holding and counting and holding. And so it brings people back into the present moment, which is the gift, right? And, being present fully and really being with the breath makes you present. But the thing that I have loved over this last little while of diving more into altered state breathing is working with people to alter the state so that they can unlock other things and heal other parts of themselves that they're not consciously aware of. And that has been such a beautiful experience, because in doing that, they're healing so much more than they consciously realize. And then taking them through that beautiful visualization process and regrounding their energy and bringing them back home to the present is such a gift in itself, to be able to hold that space for people who are ready to shed some old layers and shine some light on who they are and where they're going and what they're meant to be doing in this lifetime. And it's been really, really special to guide and to hold that for the people who have come through so far. And I'm so excited to see what evolves and who else is feeling called to come into this space. And it's such a beautiful tool that they can go and do themselves. It's not always come in and be in this container or be in this one-on-one session. It's such a beautiful gift to remind people how to breathe, because we often forget how to breathe. People get in fight or flight and they just chest breathe, and it's like, oh, bring the breath all the way down, like breathe into your belly, breathe in your nose, like really basic things that we need to remind people of.
I just took a big deep breath in as you were finishing up then. And yeah, it's when you catch yourself in those moments, like, even just before we were starting, I was doing a few things here, cleaning there, just getting things ready. And then as we started, and because normally it's like Felicia and I found myself, like, as you were speaking, like tensing and then holding my breath, and then you were talking, I'm like, oh, I need to breathe now. It's all good, we're chill. But you're so right. It's just like coming back to the present. And, I also work in schools doing relief work now. I was in schools for like 16 years in different settings, and being in the arts, coming back to the breath, coming back to the body through dance, through drama, through play, through laughter, through understanding the contrast of emotions and stepping into character. Like, that has been such big medicine for me in crafting, where I get to be now, in understanding what archetypes are about and how we can then step into different roles. But the breath was always through that. Dance was something that always sparked this joy and this fire inside. And when I was in the moment, it was that breath work practice of breathing through the movement, through the music, through the fast paced action, that always kept me conscious and connected. And it was only when I started doing breath work facilitation, and I'm an advanced breathwork facilitator now for those that are listening, and beautiful Sarah, I've got to support her. But it was that kind of penny dropping through this medicine with our beautiful mentor, Berenice Tan, and Soulside Breathwork, that it was like, wow, I was unconsciously doing that, but feeling this essence to source, to God, to myself. And I forgot that over time. And becoming an adult, you
Yeah,
forget the pure sense of, what it is to play, to dance, to breathe, to sing, to be wild and free as our children
yeah,
do. And then naturally breathing. And it's like remembering that we can access that, but more consciously now. And so I love that you were
absolutely.
bringing, yeah, it's so powerful. And I love that you were bringing in this piece around that ability to journey into the subconscious mind, and it's all natural. And the most profound insights I've had have been through breath work that unlocked different parts to then allow the next phase of information to drop in and wisdom to come through, so that then when I was ready for like plant medicine or ready for another layer, my body was, and my nervous system was attuned for the information to come in. And not that I need plant
Mm,
medicine, and it's not something that I do, but that one process really then unlocked another layer. But I found now, going back into breath work, it's just this a beautiful, natural, organic way to access
mm,
whatever wisdom needs to come through. And I know, Sarah, like, this is one other amazing tool in your toolkit, um, and you've got a whole array of other beautiful things. What is it
yeah.
about those journeys or those insights or that wisdom that comes through for you that is like a little light bulb moment, or like a deep remembrance where it's like, aha, like that then fuels you to keep going? Because sometimes it can be very heavy in this world and this work. So what is it about these moments that allow you to keep doing the things that you do?
For me, recently, it has been these little moments of being tested and then the pause. For me, it's been, when sometimes when you think back a few years and you go, oh, I would have reacted really differently to that. And over the last kind of 2 months, it's been, how check yourself and actually having to pause and go, okay, let's take a moment before I react, and let's craft a response. And that has been really empowering for me, because I'm an Aries. I can fly off the handle. I can absolutely go to town. And coming into this newer version of myself since around March, since I came home from the shamanism retreat, I felt a real shift. That was a real pivotal point for me, and up leveling. And that actually, there was a breathwork ceremony with Marcel Hoff during that shamanism retreat, and that was a huge like flick switch for me as well. And this year has been a real roller coaster of really beautiful highs and very challenging lows, and actually being able to acknowledge that it's all part of the journey and it's all okay, because it's one day at a time, it's one breath at a time, it's one decision at a time. And acknowledging that within every trial, and I'm going to show you this because I pulled some cards before we arrived, within every challenge is an opportunity for learning, is an opportunity for growth. And whether that opportunity for growth is advocating on behalf of your daughter and saying, hey, this is something she really wants to do and we need to honor this. Or if it's something for myself of, hey, this opportunity is really going to excel me as a person. It's going to help expand this business. It's going to help call in more soul clients. Then it's honoring that. So I find every little glimmer, every trigger, every challenge is also an opportunity, and it's honoring that, because there's transformational opportunities everywhere. We just have to be aware of them.
Yeah. And that awareness comes with discernment. And I loved how you said, like, the pause, like waiting for that information or waiting for that drop or just allowing that to sit. And it was like, I had these two other cards as well. I know we're just talking the Oracle Wisdom, but this one, I pulled that one as well. That one just kind of popped out.
Ooh.
And it was like, wait for the important information. But it was like also, this one also came out with it, with the moon. Take note of intuitive messages. So they were kind of together, and you've just like, encapsulated that really beautifully. So sitting with that, the changes and the transformation is part of the integration process. And I know we're about to finish up, but what is it about allowing ourselves to integrate any of these big transformations or insights or drop-ins or big shifts? Like what? And I always think this is really important, and sometimes people in the spiritual world actually forget to hold space for the aftercare. So I'd love for your insights about the integration process and why you think that's important.
Oh, I love that you've transitioned to this, because these are the other two cards that came out when I was doing the pull from my shamanic medicine deck. The next card was death. And with every death, there is a rebirth. And you're exactly right. After every healing session, after every experience of growth that you have, there's an integration, and there's an honoring and a grieving process of who you were, and allowing who you are to be planted and to actually grow. Because so often, and I myself am learning this as well, this is an opportunity for growth for me. I like to try and think I can speed things along, and plant the seed one day, and the next day I'm going to be a fully grown tree and have fruit. That's not the way it works. And it's so important to remember that if you've got 20, 30 years of trauma, 1 hour healing session is not going to shed all of those layers. It's not going to miraculously bring you to this enlightened, healed state. And I think in this modern society, we love to think that we can have these quick fixes, where in reality, it takes a lot of patience It takes a lot of self-love and self-care. It takes integration time. It takes us and our conscious knowing to do the journaling when we have things that we still need to release after. It takes letter writing to actually pour our hearts out in a letter and burn it because we don't want anyone else to read it. It takes us time to be outside, to ground our energy, to actually allow ourselves to be, because we live in this society that's so fast paced where it's go, 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 work, pick up school, do this, do the groceries, do like, whoosha mama, like we just need to be. We need to like consciously create the time for ourselves to drink the cacao, ground our energy, do our breath work, pull some cards, and be in our own energy, check in with ourselves. How are we? How am I actually feeling? What do I feel today? Instead of being pulled in all these other directions by all the other responsibilities of life, and checking in with ourselves. And like my favorite thing is I have a cacao every morning. I do my own grounding breathing exercise every morning, and it doesn't take long, but that's my me time. And that is me honoring myself, honoring my energy. And I think it's so important for us as women, as mothers, with anyone, to have something that is yours, something that is means that it's your time to check in with your heart and actually just feel your own energy, because our kids can love us, our partners can love us, and we can love them as well. But we have to love ourselves, and we have to fill our own cup before we can continue to give to others.
Yeah, it's so, so powerful. And I love that you use that analogy, and those pieces around self love and honoring our energy and the energy of others. And so, beautiful Fleas, she's like, this is my time. She's done so much work. And it's like, yep, honoring that time. And it was this piece around she needs to fill her cup to rejuvenate. And she's like, I cannot give from a dirty cup. I cannot
Yeah.
give from an empty cup. And it's like, yeah, so right. So Flea, if you're listening onto this, because this links to her account too and the Awakening page, I feel like this beautiful chat is for you as well. So sending you so much love. And Sarah, what amazing insights for the listeners today. And how can they contact you if they're like, oh my gosh, I need to just connect with Sarah? How can they find you?
So there are two ways to get in contact with me. On Facebook, you can find me at Embracing Serenity with Sarah, or if you're on Instagram, you can follow me at sarah.bradnock.
Beautiful. And feel free to add that in the Facebook chat later for anyone to come and join in. That would be so beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time. It has been such a pleasure. And how was your first podcast experience?
Oh, it's been so lovely chatting to you. It's been such a beautiful, just conversational flow, and I've really had a great time. So, thank you, Marie, for the invitation. Thank you to everyone who is listening. And yeah, if you'd like to reach out and have a cordial or conversation with me, please do. I'd love to hear from you.
Beautiful, amazing. And folks, don't forget to listen back later on today. We've got the wonderful Efrat tuning in from Israel. And again, another beautiful conscious mama. She's just so gifted, shamanic as well. I feel like these are the vibes today. So tune in, and folks, don't forget to also check out the replays of our recent Global Youth Summit. So many amazing insights and information for parents, but also to share with your kids and your teens. We're so lucky to have such amazing young people share with us in this space, and it's just been such a whirlwind of amazingness. So it has been so wonderful to have that. So guys, check it out on the replays, and if you're watching this episode on the replay, hashtag replay, and feel free to connect with Sarah. Thanks everybody.